Breaking today, the implosion of the Sussexes. Meghan Markle's Archewell charity scam and as ever lies have finally been exposed, and an astonishing double blow for the fake Duchess. We're going to get into it all.
Look, there's been leaked financial details from the Archewell Foundation that's quite fascinating because it shows that there's...
What happens when a U.S. tax inquiry collides with the British monarchy? And what if the issue isn't just about finances, but about royal titles, institutional boundaries, and public trust? On February 18, 2026, outside Marlborough House in London, Princess Anne delivered a rare and carefully worded public statement addressing reports linking the royal family to a U.S. review involving the Archewell Foundation, the non-profit connected to Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. Why would a senior royal step forward personally? What questions were American authorities asking? And could this moment reshape how royal titles are used in private ventures moving forward? Tonight, we're breaking down what's been reported, what's officially confirmed, and what still remains under review, separating documented facts from speculation. Let's get into it. In a public statement outside Marlborough House on February 18, 2026, Princess Anne addressed recent reports linking the British royal family to a U.S. tax inquiry involving the Archewell Foundation, an organization connected to Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. Speaking from a marble lectern, Anne emphasized the royal household's full cooperation with official inquiries and reaffirmed its commitment to transparency and constitutional duty. According to documents referenced by major outlets, U.S. authorities have requested clarification on whether the foundation ever received any form of endorsement from the monarchy. While details remain under review, Anne's decision to address the matter directly highlighted the institution's effort to maintain accountability and public trust. The remarks mark a notable moment in the royal family's approach to addressing international scrutiny calmly and transparently. Reports indicate that the inquiry followed several public remarks made in 2023, including a statement at the Aspen Impact Forum in which Meghan Markle said, "Archewell represents not just our family, but a legacy of service that the Crown instilled in us." According to media coverage, U.S. tax officials reviewed whether such comments could have created confusion about any formal connection between the foundation and the British monarchy. Public filings from 2024 also drew attention, leading to what has been described as a routine cross-border review. In February, U.S. authorities reportedly sought clarification from representatives linked to the royal household regarding any direct or indirect support, use of royal titles in commercial contexts, or symbolic associations. Sources cited in financial and government reporting suggest that British officials provided documentation stating that no public funds, formal endorsements, or authorizations were granted to the organization. Communications records referenced in reports also indicate prior internal guidance concerning the use of royal-related imagery and branding materials. According to sources cited in British and U.S. media, follow-up discussions between American tax officials and representatives connected to the royal household were described as professional and focused. Reports indicate that on February 16th, Princess Anne held a private meeting in London with a senior IRS official specializing in international tax compliance. The session reportedly addressed questions surrounding public statements, fundraising activity, and the use of royal titles or symbols in promotional and tax-related materials.
Are they insane? What is happening? There is complete and utter chaos going on. The Meg and Harold are taking their rebrands far too literally at this point.
Now let's talk a little Harry and Meghan. Their Archewell Foundation has been declared delinquent by the state of California, meaning it is not in good standing as a charity and not permitted to engage in activities like raising and spending money, pretty much all you would expect a charitable fund to do.
While no official transcript has been released, coverage from outlets such as The Telegraph and The Washington Post suggests that documentation and procedural explanations were provided during the exchange. An internal memo referenced by U.S. media reportedly noted appreciation for the level of cooperation offered. Observers have pointed out that it is uncommon for senior members of the royal family to comment publicly on matters involving external legal review, making the engagement notable within a constitutional context. In her remarks, Princess Anne emphasized the importance of institutional integrity and clear boundaries between public duty and private enterprise. Observers noted that the timing of the statement coincided with a recent compliance filing submitted by the Archewell Foundation to California's Charity Registry, reportedly reflecting structural updates. Media coverage has also highlighted ongoing scrutiny of the foundation's financial reporting. According to documents referenced by investigative outlets, U.S. tax authorities have reviewed past filings and administrative changes, including a reported shift to a fiscal sponsorship arrangement in 2025. Such structures are commonly used within the nonprofit sector, though transitions can draw regulatory attention if disclosures are delayed or amended. Public records indicate that some filings for prior fiscal years were submitted later than expected, prompting questions now being examined through established legal processes. As with any regulatory review, findings will depend on official determinations rather than preliminary reporting. Public tax filings for 2024 show that the Archewell Foundation reported $2.1 million in donations, a decrease from the previous year. Reported expenses totaled approximately $5.1 million, with about $1.25 million distributed as grants to external charitable organizations. The remaining expenditures included salaries, administrative costs, travel, and security. According to figures cited in financial reporting, 2 staff members received a combined total of $913,000 in compensation. Analysts reviewing the filings have noted that compensation levels and overhead costs can vary widely among nonprofits, though such figures sometimes prompt additional regulatory review when compared to overall program spending. Separate media coverage has also examined the launch of Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand, As Ever, introduced in 2024. Commentators observed similarities in design aesthetics to traditional British branding, though no formal findings have been announced. Online discussions in early 2026 also raised technical questions about the brand's e-commerce platform, reflecting the broader public interest surrounding both ventures. Reports circulated online in early 2026 referencing inventory figures allegedly linked to a related commercial venture, including fruit preserves, candles, teas, and specialty food items. Some commentators estimated that a significant volume of stock remained unsold, though no official audit confirming those totals has been publicly released. Analysts noted that inventory overproduction can occur in new lifestyle brands, particularly during early expansion phases. Financial reporting also highlighted Archewell's reported transition in 2025 to a fiscal sponsorship arrangement with a registered nonprofit partner in Los Angeles. Such structures are legally recognized within the nonprofit sector, though they can draw attention when adopted by high-profile organizations. Commentators suggested the move coincided with increased public scrutiny, while others emphasized that restructuring decisions often reflect administrative or compliance considerations. Major newspapers in the UK and US have published opinion pieces examining the foundation's finances and branding approach. Questions raised in those articles focus on governance, transparency, and regulatory interpretation, all of which remain subject to formal review. According to reporting from mid-February 2026, a senior U.S. tax official met privately in London with Princess Anne and representatives associated with the royal household's compliance advisors. The discussion was described by sources as a formal working session focused on clarifying institutional boundaries between the monarchy and the Archewell Foundation, as well as related commercial activities. Media accounts state that U.S. officials sought clarification on several areas, including references to royal titles in American filings, public remarks that may have implied institutional endorsement, and the use of royal imagery in branding. In response, representatives for the royal household reportedly provided documentation indicating that no financial grants, licensing approvals, or formal authorizations had been issued. Additional records cited in coverage suggest that internal communications over several years addressed concerns about reputational overlap. As with other aspects of the review, final conclusions remain dependent on official findings rather than preliminary reports. Sources familiar with the February 2026 meeting at Clarence House described Princess Anne's approach as formal and focused on constitutional responsibilities.
As Ever We Know launched in April of last year, and Meghan started off with raspberry spread, the flower sprinkles, the teas, and a honey. And we've had a couple of little bits and pieces added to it since then.
Meghan Markle finally achieved something in 2025 without having to buy it. Villain of the Year, Worst TV Show of 2025, Most Disliked Celebrity, a clean sweep that confirms one thing: the public is done
According to accounts shared with the press, discussions centered on whether the activities of the Archewell Foundation created reputational considerations for the monarchy. One exchange, as reported, emphasized the importance of protecting institutional credibility and public trust. Commentary in several outlets noted the symbolic setting of Clarence House, often used for official but low-profile engagements. Observers suggested the choice of venue reflected the seriousness of the conversation while avoiding unnecessary public spectacle. Following the meeting, the U.S. Internal Revenue Service issued a public statement thanking representatives of the royal household for their cooperation in clarifying the monarchy's position. Analysts interpreted the message as confirmation that authorities had received the information they requested. As with other elements of the review, any regulatory conclusions remain subject to formal processes rather than media interpretation. Following the reported meeting at Clarence House, several outlets noted updates to internal royal guidelines concerning the use of titles, insignia, and ceremonial references by former working members of the royal family. According to sources cited in the press, revised protocols now call for additional legal review of commercial branding that references royal terminology, as well as clearer disclaimers in charitable communications stating no formal affiliation with the monarchy. Media reports also suggest that legal advisors reviewed certain packaging and design elements associated with related commercial ventures to assess whether they aligned with existing branding standards. No formal legal outcome has been publicly confirmed. Headlines in the UK and US reflected differing interpretations of the developments, with many emphasizing the royal household's effort to clarify institutional boundaries. Observers note that questions regarding titles or future actions remain speculative. Shortly after these updates, Princess Anne delivered a public statement reinforcing the monarchy's position on transparency and governance. Princess Anne's public remarks were delivered against a simple backdrop featuring the royal trust insignia and national flags. The setting was formal but understated, reflecting the seriousness of the subject rather than ceremony. In her statement, Anne said, "The royal family has neither funded nor endorsed the Archewell Foundation. We have offered no formal or informal affiliation, nor have we licensed any use of our names, titles, or symbols for commercial or philanthropic purposes related to that organization." She added that when established institutions are associated with private ventures without authorization, it becomes necessary to clarify boundaries in order to uphold public trust and the rule of law. Observers noted that the statement outlined key principles, including institutional neutrality in private enterprises, the expectation of clear disclaimers in external activities, and limits on the use of royal symbolism. Commentators described the address as a formal reaffirmation of governance standards rather than a ceremonial occasion. Updated guidance referenced in media coverage states that commercial entities may not use royal emblems, crests, or historically associated design elements without formal authorization from the appropriate royal office. The same principles clarify that any suggestion of continuing the monarchy's legacy in a private or non-profit venture without approval could be considered misleading. A summary document outlining these standards was reportedly shared with regulators and select outlets under the title Statement of Institutional Separation, Archewell and the Crown. During a press exchange, Princess Anne was asked whether the use of the Duchess of Sussex title in business or charitable contexts had received palace approval. She responded, "Titles bestowed within the Crown are not trade assets. They are symbolic duties held in public trust." She added that using such titles in connection with unclear financial structures, particularly during regulatory review, raises serious governance questions. Reports also indicate that legal advisors began reviewing title usage policies and branding concerns, though no formal outcomes have been publicly confirmed. In her remarks, Princess Anne stated that any legal or procedural steps under consideration were intended to protect the institution rather than target individuals. She emphasized that the monarchy's symbols and traditions are part of a public trust and should not be used in ways that could create confusion about official affiliation. Subsequent media coverage suggested that other senior members of the royal family privately expressed support for clarifying institutional boundaries. While specific conversations were not made public, several outlets reported that the broader message focused on governance, transparency, and the distinction between public duty and private enterprise. International newspapers responded with a range of headlines analyzing the implications of Anne's statement. Commentators largely framed the moment as a formal effort to define limits around branding, titles, and representation. As with earlier developments, any lasting impact will depend on regulatory findings and internal reviews rather than immediate media reaction. Princess Anne's February 18th address has been widely described in media coverage as a significant clarification of the monarchy's position on branding, titles, and institutional boundaries. Commentators noted that the statement may serve as a reference point for how similar matters are handled in the future. The tone of the address was formal and measured, emphasizing governance rather than personal criticism. In the weeks following the speech, reporting has focused on ongoing regulatory reviews involving the Archewell Foundation and related commercial ventures. What began as a compliance review has, according to some outlets, expanded in scope, though no official findings have been publicly confirmed. Analysts have discussed questions surrounding nonprofit expenditures, branding strategy, and the distinction between charitable operations and private business activity. As investigations continue, key issues remain subject to review by relevant authorities.
Meghan Markle spent all year long talking about success, desperately trying to sell this image of being this successful businesswoman, this CEO and philanthropist. The amount of publicity she bought in 2025.
It is understood that the Archewell Foundation did not pay the necessary fees correctly and was unaware of the issue until the delinquency notice was issued. Gabby?
Any conclusions regarding financial management or donor communications will ultimately depend on formal determinations rather than preliminary reports or anonymous sources. Media reports have examined Archewell's reported transition in 2025 to a fiscal sponsorship arrangement, a structure commonly used within the nonprofit sector. Some commentators have suggested the timing followed a period of declining donations, though no official determination has characterized the move as improper. Public filings continue to list Prince Harry in a formal role, while various outlets have speculated about day-to-day management responsibilities. Separate coverage has focused on intellectual property questions related to the lifestyle brand as ever. Following Princess Anne's address, reports indicate that legal representatives associated with the Royal Trust reviewed branding elements that may resemble traditional royal imagery. According to press accounts, correspondence was sent requesting clarification around design features, title references, and public disclaimers regarding affiliation. As of the latest updates, the brand's website was temporarily offline, and some retailers were reported to be reassessing distribution arrangements. Estimates regarding unsold inventory have circulated in financial commentary, though verified figures have not been publicly confirmed through official audit findings. Some financial commentators have cited unverified audit-related figures suggesting limited product sales during a short promotional window in early 2026. However, no publicly released IRS report has confirmed specific sales totals. Separate trade sources have claimed that certain warehouse providers reviewed their storage arrangements with the brand, though the companies involved have not issued detailed public statements. Legal analysts note that if regulators were to identify reporting violations, potential consequences under U.S. tax law could include civil penalties, loss of tax-exempt status, or further legal review. At this stage, authorities have not announced formal charges, and any enforcement action would depend on the outcome of official investigations. In California, records indicate that past compliance filings have drawn renewed administrative attention. Media outlets have also speculated about differing strategic priorities within the organization and related commercial ventures. These claims remain based on anonymous sourcing and have not been independently verified through court filings or regulatory findings. In the weeks following Princess Anne's address, attention has shifted toward the formal review process now underway in both the United States and the United Kingdom. Regulatory agencies are expected to examine documentation, governance structures, and financial disclosures in detail. Analysts familiar with nonprofit law note that cross-border reviews can be complex, particularly when branding, fundraising, and public identity intersect across jurisdictions. Several governance experts interviewed by major outlets have emphasized that fiscal sponsorship arrangements and branding disputes are not uncommon in high-profile nonprofit cases. What makes this situation distinctive, they suggest, is the public visibility of the individuals involved and the symbolic weight attached to royal titles. Even so, specialists caution against drawing conclusions before official findings are released. Reviews of this nature often take months and rely heavily on documented evidence rather than media narratives. Meanwhile, public filings and corporate records continue to be scrutinized by journalists and industry observers. Transparency advocates argue that clear reporting standards ultimately benefit both donors and institutions. Others stress that reputational impact can move faster than legal outcomes, particularly in the digital age, where speculation often precedes formal determinations. Within the nonprofit sector, the situation has prompted broader discussion about governance best practices. Advisory groups have pointed out that organizations linked to public figures often face heightened compliance expectations, especially when fundraising spans multiple countries. In response, some charities have reportedly begun reviewing their own branding policies and disclosure language to avoid ambiguity regarding institutional affiliations. Financial commentators have also examined the commercial dimension of the story, noting that lifestyle brands connected to well-known personalities frequently experience rapid expansion followed by operational challenges. Market analysts suggest that inventory management, supply forecasting, and licensing oversight are common growing pains in emerging ventures. As regulatory bodies continue their work, official statements from all parties have remained limited. Representatives associated with the organizations in question have previously stated their intention to comply with applicable laws and reporting requirements. Any final assessment will depend on documented evidence and regulatory conclusions rather than commentary or conjecture. In London, constitutional scholars have weighed in on the broader implications of the royal household's response. Several experts told British media that the situation underscores the delicate balance between personal enterprise and institutional identity. While former working royals are permitted to pursue private ventures, the continued public recognition of their titles can create ambiguity that requires careful legal framing. Updated internal guidance, as reported, appears aimed at reducing that ambiguity going forward. Across the Atlantic, nonprofit compliance professionals note that U.S. regulators typically focus on documentation, board oversight, and financial controls rather than public perception alone. If concerns arise, agencies generally request detailed records, including grant agreements, expense categorization, and governance minutes. These reviews are procedural in nature and may or may not result in enforcement actions. Observers suggest that the outcome of this matter could influence how other high-profile foundations structure their reporting, particularly when brand identity and charitable missions operate in parallel. Market analysts are also monitoring the commercial ripple effects. Retail partners and distribution channels tend to respond quickly to uncertainty, especially when reputational questions intersect with regulatory review. Industry consultants explain that even without formal findings, brands may pause expansion plans or adjust marketing language to minimize potential legal exposure. At the same time, philanthropic advisors emphasize that donor confidence often depends on clarity around governance and measurable impact. In situations where financial disclosures become the subject of scrutiny, organizations sometimes commission independent audits or publish supplemental reports to reinforce transparency. Whether such steps will be taken here remains to be seen. For now, the focus remains on documented evidence and official review processes. As authorities continue their evaluations, public commentary is likely to evolve alongside verified disclosures and formal statements. Public reaction in both the United Kingdom and the United States has been mixed. Some commentators on British television and in U.S. opinion columns have questioned how royal titles should function when individuals connected to them are involved in ongoing regulatory reviews. Advocacy groups focused on nonprofit governance have also called for heightened oversight of tax-exempt entities linked to high-profile figures, though no formal restrictions have been announced. Reports suggest that, as part of standard constitutional procedure, advisors may review policies related to title usage if certain legal thresholds are met. However, no official decision regarding suspension or revocation has been confirmed. Coverage has also referenced discussions about clearer guidelines for post-service branding and public representation aimed at reducing institutional ambiguity in the future. As investigations and policy reviews continue, the final outcome will depend on documented findings and established legal processes rather than speculation. What do you think this moment means for the relationship between public institutions and private enterprise? If you found this breakdown helpful, consider subscribing to the channel and sharing your thoughts in the comments below.